This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
This is the meeting of the Senior Center Building Committee. It says Council on Aging, that confused me. I will begin with the roll call. Would you call out the names? Who's here, Leslie?
Yes. So Pat Crow.
Here.
Tom Brown.
Here.
Leslie Button. Here. Dawn Gratian Moore.
Here.
Tony Corella.
Here.
Ann Longley.
Here.
Elizabeth McAnulty.
Here.
Dan. Dave Paquette, sorry. Dan Rist.
Here.
Cindy Terrell.
Here, and somebody just joined us. Hi.
Is that Bonnie?
No, there's somebody in the middle there. It might be Bonnie. She joins by phone.
Bonnie,
Bonnie, are you there?
Maybe not. Somebody else.
Maybe that's my note taker.
would the minutes please also, well, that was membership. Not technically a member. Would the minutes please recognize that the mayor is at the meeting? All right, we need approval of the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Second.
Motion is made second. Is there any further discussion or amendments to the minutes? Thank you, Leslie. They were excellent. Since we don't know if Bonnie's here, I'll do a voice call. All in favor?
Aye.
We can do that unless we have someone online. We don't know that. Public speak. Does anybody online wish to speak to the committee? Now is your time, 2 minutes each.
Just trying to make this bigger.
Doesn't seem so. What is the first one?
That's
Leslie's note taker.
Go ahead. It's like, it's the online.
It's an AI.
So we don't have public speak. Okay, what I'd like to do now, can you, Cindy, put up Allison's report? I'm just gonna go over it. I'd like to go member by member and discuss, so you could tell us what you think of each of the sites. And I'm mostly gonna deal with, there are 4 sites, one of them being the DPW garage, that are owned by the city. The criteria that the ad hoc committee used was if we own the site, we save a lot of money and we don't have to buy the land, eminent domain and all that. If there's someone who really wants to use a site like that, we'd have to discuss executive committee, but we'll wait till we get to that. There are some extra sites that Allison looked at. Some of them, a lot of them are private. So would you can you put up the?
I can, but I have to do it in a way that keeps my password confidential. So I'm going to email it to the Google Meet, and then I will be able to open it from Google Meet.
Okay. So I'll begin, and then I want to go to the non-ad hoc committee members first, because the rest of you on the ad hoc committee are more familiar with this. I've reviewed all these sites, and I've decided that Park Street is the one that we should pursue for a couple of reasons. And I did have a talk with Allison just to make sure there are no real barriers to it. She was concerned about the sewer main on Park Street, but that could be moved if we can't pave over. The other thing is the Button Road connection is only if we need egress, and she didn't think the fire department would require that. The rest of the land is, there's plenty of acreage for parking and for the building, but we would probably need to make sure how far wetlands toward the river are there. I like it also because I don't believe it's a traffic issue. The transportation, which is one of the issues, one of the criteria of the site committee, was an issue, and if PVTA bus goes right by there, we can get her to come in. I think all of these things point to a place we can start with. I say this, if we hire an architect and engineer, when they go in there and they find something, then a second site would have to be looked at. And I'd like you to come up, if you think about a second site, I am a toss-up for a second site between Daly Field and Highland Avenue, both of which require a taking, in a sense, from the Boy Scouts or deed restriction on Highland Avenue, and then Daly Field recreation and all that. I'm not in favor of that, but we'll see how everybody feels. So that's the Park Street one. Did everybody get a chance to look at what Allison sent? Okay. Ann, I'll start with you. How do you feel about these sites?
Well, I know a couple of them, because of just living here a certain amount of time. But my thought was same issue, Park Street.
Okay. Do you have a second site or anything in mind if there's a problem? We could also cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yeah.
I'd be curious.
No, I hadn't thought about a second site.
Okay.
I really like Park Avenue. I mean, you don't have to, purchase any land. You don't have to take any,
Yeah, would you put the Park Street map up if you can find it? Yeah, okay. We're talking about, so everybody is refreshed, we're talking about the land to the left of the water there that has that little jut that goes to Park Street. Tom is going to be the pointer.
This is the 6.5 acres she's referring.
I thought it was 9 acres.
I think she says 6 in the report.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Now, what she's saying is 6 acres of buildable area if we eliminate any possibility of wetlands. So there's still more land there, but we wouldn't be able to use it.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, and Elizabeth, what do you think?
I like the Park Street one in a lot of ways. I'm not as familiar with the bus routes and how frequent the National Express is running. I think that's really important for people to be able to use it.
Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we can petition them to change the amount of time they go by if there's something new there now.
That would be great. I mean, that would make a big difference.
And I think it was Cindy that said that a lot of people drive to the current Council on Aging. Am I correct? John, Cindy, there's a lot of driving. So if we had a place where there's a lot of parking.
It is, but having gone to many, I've worked at a lot of different senior centers coming in as volunteers, and I know that a lot of people are not using senior centers because they can't get there. And we know that with more and more people getting older, there's a lot of them that don't drive. And so just planning ahead for having access for those people as well as the drivers, I think is going to be really essential. Speaking as one who does walk to the senior center and has several friends who do as well.
Okay. Well, I'm hopeful that PVTA would change their frequency of bus route.
That would make a big difference, yeah.
Does anybody have any, Don?
I just want to mention something about the bus route, not about my opinion, because it's not my turn. But so the Nashawanic is interesting in that it makes this very large loop. So it's great sometimes one direction and terrible the other direction. So like if you are, say, coming to the senior center from one of the senior housings, you might have a 10-minute ride, but going back, you might have or going to Northampton, you could have a 10-minute ride one way, but then an hour and a half ride the other way, depending on where you're trying to get. So it's just something to think about, that unlike the R41, which goes out and back, this just keeps making a big loop. So frequency would be great, but also because of the way the bus route works, it's super challenging for people. Even when they use it to get to our center, they tend not to. They tend to use the R41. So it just so people understand how that bus route works compared to, say, the R41, which people do use because it's out and back.
It's all about supply and demand. If there's a bigger demand, I think we can send our buddy the mayor down to PVTA and say, look, we have a new senior center. We need more frequency of back and forth to the center. You're on the PVTA advisory board?
Yeah.
That's handy. That's very handy.
That's just in terms of like, if
I'm
you said the
nearby.
R41 right by, I would think that that would be more helpful than the Nashwanik based on the type of route it is. So it would just be a thing to think about.
Tom, did you want to say something
Just-
on that issue?
Yes. It may not be important for them to make regular runs. It might be more important when there's an event going on that we know a lot of people want to get to. So the question would be, could we contact them and say, hey, next Friday there's an event. Could you help us out by making the special runs, if you will, for that particular event? Because there's going to be 200 people coming to this event, as opposed to day in and day out, there may not be that big of a crowd.
That's a long way down. Let's build it, and then the bus will come. David?
Second choice, any place that's on the R41 route would be, and that's not too far from the road.
I think it's a solvable problem. David? All right, so I'm wrong. You're David, and that's Tony. Tony, I want to make sure I get your names right.
Yeah, I like the Park Street thing. And second, I would say Highland Avenue. I'm just wondering, was there any consideration given to the other things that you brought up, like 7 Ferry Street of leasing?
Well, it is something that we could discuss, but I'd rather not do that without Allison. So hopefully she can come to our next meeting, because I think that's when we can finalize these, this decision. But 7 Ferry Street is privately owned, so I don't know.
I think in this report, Alice had mentioned 7 Ferry, and she had mentioned the Tasty Top property. So in general, forget the locations for a moment. The thought was that you could potentially have an owner build the building and then you lease it. But I think, I don't know if that's out of Allison's purview, and could we potentially have Mike Owens come to a meeting to discuss what's involved with leasing and how that affects versus actually putting up a $20 million building, if you will, versus leasing a building long-term. Pros and cons, what are the financing
That would be, all right,
intricacies of that?
we'll think of have Mike come to the next meeting.
That's how that's what the state does. You know, they put out a proposal and somebody builds the building and the state leases it.
But Park Street is your number one site if we're gonna
Yeah.
build it on our own.
Right, yeah.
David?
I'm also in agreement with, I think, of the city owned, that Park Street, I think, rises to the top. There's also, it's in terms of synergy, it's close to the Treehouse, which I think makes a lot of sense. You kind of have access to Nonotuck Park trailways through there, so there's some benefit through, but potential pathways for people walking there if they want. It's also close to the Mountain View School, which I think has some benefits. There's already similar city-owned property there that's being used. In terms of a second, I think it's more difficult to sort of pick one. I think it was also like it's sort of a toss-up between Highland and Daly Field. I think Daly Field has the issues of, I think they both do, potentially the Article 97 issue. Daly Field, I think, could have the advantage that if we were, if Parks and Rec, I think, need a new building, if there's some, I think, more leverage potentially for going that route if we have to go through Article 97, just because I know in the terms of Easthampton, that's been a long-standing. Next other thing is that the Park and Rec, his buildings are pretty old.
So Cindy,
I would feel better if I'd physically seen them. I drove by, Highland, that's the one behind Papa George's, yeah. And I looked at just kind of, it's like a ravine coming down as the frontage, woods. It doesn't look accessible from Highland at all.
You go way to the end?
Yeah. So because it looks like the frontage is before the last house. So just clue me into where the access even is.
I thought it was right next to the house.
So when you, this, so the street ends right past number 21, and between 20 and 21, it's like a ditch,
well, all of that can be overcome if that's your choice.
a very narrow ditch. Well, so I was just curious. I couldn't remember, was the access going to be somewhere behind the post office?
I don't,
No, down Highland.
It would be on Highland. Okay. So I felt like I couldn't really assess it as a, you know, I've seen some of the other ones, so I would need to learn more about Highland, because to me, it's still relatively centrally located in Easthampton, you know? Like
are you concerned at all about the traffic coming out, even though there's a light for Highland Avenue?
I mean, right, traffic is so difficult there and on Main Street. But so like the others, Park seems like the best option. I just think it's really too bad that the access isn't great down by the bottom of the mountain, because that piece of land just seems,
Oh, you mean, Holyoke Street?
yeah,
It's a traffic nightmare.
right. So it just seems more easily developable than some of these, but anyway, so yeah, Park.
Dawn?
Yeah, I would say for all the reasons mentioned, Park Street is definitely the one that stands out to me as the easiest. And my questions about that are definitely access and public transportation, which you hit. And then also just being really clear on the water issues, because they've come up with the schools and there have been ways to manage it, but just making sure they're
How
really
much water it's gonna,
like wetlands and how the
Yeah,
building is
I
being
think-
built, and just being really aware that those parcels of
put the map
land-
back. You see that little line right there? I don't,
Yeah.
that line before the big river?
Yeah.
Assuming,
What's that green stuff? Is that the aquifer?
It's water, I believe, wetlands,
Yeah.
wetlands.
she's talking about those wetlands, but the majority of the build would be much closer to the street.
The road is.
I'm just saying in terms of wanting to understand from Allison about like those lands out there have historically had the reputation of being very wet. And there's been mitigation,
Yes.
including building the new school and building it with different technology
You're
to,
absolutely right.
so it's just something I like to keep in mind. Then for a second choice, I do actually think if it made sense, I feel like there are a lot of trickinesses around Daly Field, but that proximity is actually like just closer to central town. Like I walk to work, you walk to the center, people ride up in scooters, things like that could still happen. We use the park a ton, we access the schools. Now, whether that parcel of land would work is big enough, we could use it, there's enough parking with the high school, there's a lot of questions in my mind. But it's a parcel of land I'm curious about, because unlike Highland, which I would not want someone on a scooter coming out to go down there, it is something that people could access from the central part of town in a safe way. So that
Maybe if you look
parcel
at-
is curious to me. I just think it could be really problematic.
Daly Field does have enough land, even if we kept the old bathroom building, for parking and the building.
Okay.
The issue is it's recreation property.
Yeah, and we so value and we use the park a ton. Like I'm really hesitant to take away any park land, but if we were making a second choice between two deeds of land I'm
Yeah.
curious about it because of the proximity and how I feel like it could serve the town and it could be a more communal, centrally located space than I think something on Highland.
Salem, I'll get to you after the members. Tom?
Coming out of the ad hoc committee, Highland Avenue was my number one choice. However, knowing there's a vetting process beyond that committee, which Alice has done a great job of, I'm concerned about this Article 97. So, and when I see on Highland Avenue and Park, there's already been word out in the community, so there's some initial pushback coming from neighbors. And when you look at the Highland Avenue site versus Park Street, it's much more residential, where Park Street, I'm not even sure where the houses are that would be opposed to this, maybe right on Park Street, I'm not sure, but much less residential units around the Park Street site. So I have, since our meetings and Allison's discussions, shifted my number one to Park Street. I think the building could be situated in a way that would also give us much more visibility from the street potentially, with signage and or building itself, where Highland Valley,
Way back.
you would need your GPS to find it because it's so far off the road. And you may or may not have any luck in putting a sign out at the Northampton Street entrance that the senior center is even down that route. With that said, however, I would love to find out if we could have the city attorney look into this Article 97 and look into the Daily Field. I understand it pretty much takes an act of God to have those changed, but it's just a cursory overview, not digging into and spending a lot of city money on legal fees, but can there be a quick down and dirty by the city attorney to say, forget those two, you guys, it's going to take too much, or yeah, it's a possibility. I don't know the answer to that because I too would like to take a look at Daily Field if it doesn't take us 5 years to get through the legislature with looking at Easthampton land.
That's the big issue.
That's a great idea, Tom.
Pardon?
It's a great idea to figure out if they're really
Have the city
viable.
attorney even say it's impossible, and if not, then I'm back on Park Street also.
The only thing that concerns me, and the mayor deal with this, is does the Park and Rec Commission know we're looking at this? And when they find out, it's gonna start a storm. And it's, right now, it looks like it's our second choice. So do we want to create a storm for a second choice? But anyway, Pat, you're the last one. Sorry, I went the other way. Oh, excuse me, Leslie, you're gonna be last. Pat,
I don't know.
okay, Leslie, no.
No, you know, I'm still a little torn. I mean, I think we have some options. I don't know if Park Street. So, you know, we keep saying, oh, Park Street, no problem, no problem, no problem. That's a sliver at best of land between those two properties right there. To get
75
in.
feet.
Well, if you look at the parking, it's less than probably what the driveway is to get into Mountain View. So I think about that. Like, how much room is there to get in between these houses that are there and properties there? I also, I don't hate that idea at all, but part of me is not sure, by just going back to that map, you know, what does it look like? I know she says, you know, it's got a slight grade. I look at that green stuff there and I'm wondering how much is that really accurate? And if you were to tell me, hey, let's put it down in the back next to, you know, in the flat area where the sludge is, and I just am saying that because I know that's what's there. It's not sludge anymore, but you know, I'd almost feel a little more comfortable. I don't know why, but I just think the entrance to the neighborhood there versus the entrance off of Park Street might be more of a challenge. That's just my gut right now. I don't have a love or a hate for Park Street, other than I just feel like we're assuming that tiny little speck there, that tiny little end there is gonna be enough room to get in, and then that we're gonna have enough room to build what we need to build in there. She said 6 acres or 9 acres, whatever the case may be. But so I don't hate any of them, to be honest with you. And I think that's kind of where I'm stuck. I mean, Highland Ave, I think, is again another great, just for what's there and the openness that could potentially be there, works for me. I think the light, I think having the light there is a benefit to any of these other spots. Well, in particular, this one. I mean, there is a light there to get in and out. People are used to dealing with lights, and it's probably way better than going to the center now and trying to find a parking spot or get out of, the back there. I've been the one who's kind of pushed for that for Daly Field. I just love the location because of all the things you said. I just love the connection to the school. I love the connection to the Williston Fields, the connection to the park. I don't want the park people to come and, come after Pat because of that. But I also don't know if there's enough room there. My other question, the mayor's here. Sorry to ask out loud, but my understanding is the Parks Department is working on a building, or the former mayor there's been works to build a new building. I don't know the logistics of that. I'm going to ask you at some point to see where we are. I've heard some crazy things about numbers and what they wanted, and then they said they were going to have, so I'm just curious. And part of my whole thought process when we started at the ad hoc committee was, how can we as a city work smarter with our money? And if that means Parks and Rec needs this, the senior center needs this, why can't we work together to do that? I understand that losing Daly Field is a big deal. It's a big deal. And again, I did hear, and I thought there was even some things in there from some things that I've overheard where that there are more restrictions, like you said, that may prevent that from even being a thing. Honestly, I wish we had a better location than any of these. I don't love any of them. I'm not gonna lie. And I don't know if we have to today decide that this is the location, Park Street, or whatever the number is. That's it. I still think, and I'm not saying that land is gonna fall out of the sky and someone's gonna give us some land, but I almost feel like that's my take on the situation. I don't have a number one right now because I'm not sure if I do.
Okay, Leslie.
I kind of feel like Pat does. I'm not in love actually with any of them, to be honest with you. If I had had my druthers, I would have said by the old Catholic Church on Pleasant Street
Yeah.
and have at it. But that ship is sailed.
Right.
Because that would be a really, to me,
Okay, great
central
location. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so knowing that, I think my preference, my top choice would actually be Daly Field. It's centrally located. And that to me is a big selling point. Park Street is a more residential area, even though I think population in that area, I think the population leans more 55 plus, maybe than other areas in town, but I'm just not wild about the location.
Well,
That's okay. Highland would probably be my second choice if I had to make one, so.
we have a lot of Park Street. We have a couple Daly Fields, and Highland Avenue. I know I put this down here, vote on 2 sites. I don't want to do that. I would like to have, we hire a planner for this city to work for us in this regard. And she's not able to be here. I'd like her to be here, hopefully at the next meeting, to discuss these again, knowing what everybody said. And I'm not against asking, you know what I didn't do? Salem? Would you like to bring up how you feel about these things?
I guess I can answer some questions and give my preference.
Sure.
So as far as Chapter 97, Article 97, if we are trying to repurpose land that was designated for recreational park use, it's going to take a 2/3 vote of both houses.
Oh my God.
Of the, so there's that piece. There could potentially be some wiggling that we could do around calling it a recreational space and using the lands around it, and also in a way that would fall under the auspice of recreation. That could be a potential, maneuver. But a lot of cities and towns have tried to fight Article 97 to build a school. It's an onerous process.
Okay.
As far as the rec department goes, they have, I just had a meeting today, they have at least 2 sets of plans that I've seen for a new space and quotes for those, which are really a lot of money.
what I heard.
So that's
what I heard.
that is on the thing, and where they have those plans drawn up for is in their current location. So if there was going to be some sort of kind of combination, or it would be a little bit of a start over. I don't know how much money they've spent investing in it, because I'm just onboarding, but
Sure.
I'm not against that. I think that finding creative ways to compound the project and make it better for the community is great. But that could be a little interesting at this point.
Yeah.
As far as sites go, yeah, none of the sites are really my favorite. I think Park Street makes sense because there is so we're going to have a new sidewalk from the center of town going up Park Street.
Mhm.
So that, part of the Safe Routes
You
to School.
that's
right.
gonna happen?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's part of the Safe Routes to School. And so that will be a wider, more accessible sidewalk to get you pretty much to the site. So that is one benefit. I think the other benefit is the amount of open space and its proximity to Nonotuck Park, because you could have some really nice walking trails behind it that would connect to the trails at Nonotuck. And so and just having places for open space and benches and things like that would probably be nice. So I do think, and traffic is not ideal, but it's also not the worst. So I think that the concern about public transportation is valid. One of the things that I'm starting to look at is, I'm trying to get people to pilot these in Easthampton, is micro transportation. So potentially having like electric trolleys or vans that can be available to bring people places at certain times in the day as just part of our transportation infrastructure. And as we look at vans and we look at things what those could connect to potential bus routes that are more out and back and easier for people to access, and we could look at having those as being the center of the hub, where like little a route could come out to the senior center. And I don't think Park Street would be too far to do something like that. So he was looking for me. I guess Highland. I don't know. The space.
Come on in, Hadel. He's in here. Do you need
You need
him?
me? No, you're fine. Okay. I do love the spot at the bottom of the mountain. I just think the egress and
I love it
ingress
too.
is just potentially too problematic.
What is it?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I just throw that out. I know we think about today, right now, what it looks like right now. But I feel like there are much smarter people than me that do traffic studies and those kind of things, that maybe there is a solution. I don't know the answer.
Well,
But again, if we don't love I don't love any of them. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're
but
fine.
I'm just thinking outside the box. Like, if we're trying to think outside the box of what kind of project we have, maybe you know, maybe there is some weird way that we just.
I think there is potential there because, you know, if I remember correctly, one of the entrances was further back than I had anticipated it to be off of Hendrick Street. It was on the other side of a couple of houses.
Do we have a
And that was right
satellite
across
view of
from
that?
right across from East Street, and it almost could be like a roundabout.
Right.
Because it's right at that intersection.
Yeah.
That East Street intersection is not great.
Right.
So it could be you know, potentially solve a traffic problem.
Not great.
I take a left there every morning.
Oh, that's, yeah, so you know that it's not great.
The left, yeah, because I live in Plains.
So that could
Can I
be,
just ask Tom, maybe you know this, Pat, for that site, was there discussions with the police and fire?
In the past is what my understanding
I mean,
was, like years ago.
Anecdotally, just
Yeah,
not,
like
not formally
nothing
at a meeting, but
on paper.
anecdotally, we heard that public safety would not be
Most
in
likely
favor
not
at
be
all of
thrilled.
that site.
Right.
Already enough accidents there.
Right.
Yeah, there was one a week ago.
I think, Tom, did you want to?
If you go
I wanted to circle back to one of Pat's points on Park Street. I'm pretty sure at the last meeting when Allison had her handy dandy little measuring tool up there,
Mhm.
she confirmed that that entry was enough to make it a legal road.
75 feet.
Whatever width is required for a legal road, it wasn't enough to make it a legal road.
Okay.
And then lastly, when we're circling back on Hoyok Street here, you know, we had a major traffic problem when we were gonna put K through 8 at Mountain View School.
Mhm.
And that was, we made one of the parts of the project a roundabout.
Mhm.
Now, the roundabout wasn't at all, meaning if the bids didn't come up low enough, we wouldn't have done it.
Right.
Even though the mayor was adamant we were gonna have a roundabout, we weren't gonna do it if we weren't gonna take money from the school to build a roundabout. It's possible when you go out to bid for a senior center, if the bids come in low enough, you have enough money, enough wiggle room to do a roundabout
At East Street.
at East Street.
I know that Allison loves roundabouts, so we can look at that. In the absence, my final thing is, all of the other sites besides Park Street have issues. The Article 97 sounds like, one, it may not happen. 2/3 majority, that's hard. Both houses, and you're talking time. You know, my timeline is 27, a vote on this, so that bothers me a lot. I don't like to get government involved, and I don't like taking land, I don't like having a domain and much, and I don't like taking land from the park department. I agree, it's a better location. If we didn't have the traffic problem, Holyoke Street would be perfect, but we have a traffic problem. What I'd like to do is have Allison, she said she could take a walk down there with Eva, our conservation agent, and take a look at the land. It's pretty well wooded, if I understand it now. But let's get a better idea of what that might mean from her before we do any. And again, if we hire an architect and we say, this is where we want engineering study and everything, and they find something wrong, well, we go back to square one.
can I just say one thing really
Yeah.
quick? So I did talk to the vice chair of the Conservation Commission yesterday.
Jay?
And he did offer to fly his drone over Park Street or any of the sites that we wanted to. And he has the radar imaging on it, so
Yeah,
you can see the
topograph.
topography and so that could be a potentially helpful thing to see.
And I also want to inform, I was at the grocery store, I ran into Jessica Allen, who was one of our former planners. She now works for Valley CDC, and they were looking for a place to perhaps build more affordable housing. And they looked at this land. The problem is I don't know what part of the land, but she said there's a hell of a lot of clay there and it'll cost you a lot of money to get rid of it. So,
Which lane, I'm sorry?
Park. So they didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
So that could be,
That
that could cost as much as buying land elsewhere. So I'm not sure. Cindy?
I want to speak to the transportation issue. We fling around public transportation. There needs to be public transportation access. We've talked about the shuttle, the R41, microtransit. The one thing we haven't discussed tonight is the senior center has public transportation. We have a fleet of coming on to
I saw them
four
at the voting,
vehicles.
the voting, yeah, it was great.
Okay. It's very cost effective to increase the number of driver hours to use the vans we already have that transport between 8 to 12 people at a time. It's very cheap to just tack on a few more hours at $20 an hour to get people to senior center
There you go.
activities than it is to, with respect to the, you know, the trolley idea, for the city to buy a trolley, or, and then for PVTA, you know, they're not necessarily gonna just run a, so PVTA, they have their fixed route, and then they have their paratransit. And they're only required to serve with paratransit the people with an ADA need. The senior transportation beyond ADA, they do it, it's kind of optional. We're trying to coordinate, right? So we extend what PVTA can do for older adults. That's why the city has invested so much in vehicles and drivers and the staff to coordinate a transportation program. So just remember that wherever the senior center is located, we can bring many people to the senior center and back each day. There are different models for this in each community, but we might want to think about, okay, the number of people using the center could say quadruple or quintuple every day, just that alone. And so then overall, the number of people who are going to need a ride to the senior center is going to increase. We're going to have more activities every day. So the number of times people need to get there is going to increase. Could that be served by another 10 hours a week of drive time on the part of the drivers for a very small amount of money? Possibly. So that's another study that we could do on the side.
I think the transportation problem is solved. And especially if we can use senior center vehicles, maybe have them located in the center of town. We don't know what we're gonna do with the old Council on Aging building once we move to a new one. That could be a site, locate people that walk, and then we transport them to the new senior center. I don't know. I mean, I think it's, what you're saying is there's another way to fix the transportation problem. Okay,
Just one other quick off the wall thing. Roundabouts, great, but one thing that's popping up all around us now is four-way stops. Does that potentially work? I know coming down the mountain could be deadly, but four-way stop, it sure slows down the traffic coming down Hoyok Street.
That's true.
I remember South and Main Street. Alberti hated the idea of four-way stops there because people wouldn't know. And up in Northampton where Trumbull Street, which just went to a four-way, they have to put a police car there and lots of notification so they don't zip right down and miss the stop sign. So I'm not sure. I just love roundabouts, but let's cross that bridge when we get to it.
And I'm going to give you a time check.
Go
So
around that
it's,
roundabout.
so
Let's circle around back to that. Let's circle back.
We can
So
go-
it's 5:42 and we have another 26 minutes left on our agenda.
It's all right. We'll
So
keep-
we're doing excellently well if you
We
just.
will not vote on this. I think a vote isn't necessary if, once we get to an architect that can do the engineering studies, and if Jay can do that before the next meeting, great. We need more information to see if Park Street will end up being our first choice. So there's no vote on that. I shouldn't have put that down. Tom and I were talking about the architect hiring is the next item on the business. And the reason for that is, number one, I think we need an architect once we get into facility, which is the next big topic, and that's going to take some time. And architectural advice is important. One of the things that was brought up, I think the mayor brought it up, Tom brought it up, is maybe we put out a request for proposals and the architects give us ideas based on what the ad hoc committee site or facility plans are. But we're still going to need funding eventually. Tom, if I heard you correctly, when we did the school, there might have been money. We have to find out how they paid for the original plan that was sent to, it wasn't an architect's, they didn't do all the architect's drawings. They did a plan that people could see, this is what the school's going to look like. Let's vote on it. And that's what we need when we go out to vote. So They're not gonna do that for free. I don't understand why they would do that for free. You know,
All I can tell you, Dan, is with Mountain View School, when the committee was formed by the mayor, the architect was already hired.
I don't know how
That
that
was done
happened.
totally by the mayor's office with city planner, whomever, but when the board had our first meeting, the architect was sitting at the meeting, who'd already been hired. It had gone out for an RFP, there'd been 3 bids, city took the lowest bid.
Well,
First
the one
meeting-
thing I would want is not just the lowest bid, but have you built senior centers? Like this company EDM has built senior centers. And I don't know what the law is. Can criteria be put ahead of cost? In other words, is the low bid the only thing we have to go? This low bid architect said I can build it for X dollars, but I've never built a senior center. That would bother me. And I don't know what, I would like to bring in Mike Owens to get this
I
discussion.
was just gonna say, you talked about bringing him in before, now you really wanna bring him in for this.
But the other question is, it takes a while, and the mayor's got a lot of stuff on, and I want to hear what you think. I heard figures like 250,000, put it in the bank. Tom suggested that because the school had the state behind it, maybe that's where money came from to hire the original architect. Maybe that's how the mayor did it. We don't have any money. So can an RFP be put out without money in the bank? Mike Owens. So 250 from free cash, how hard is that? And do you want to wait? I'd rather not wait because we need the architect to continue this discussion, don't we?
Well, I mean,
I'm open to people telling me what's the next step.
so right now we're hoping that free cash will be certified mid-January. So, I mean, that's not too far.
No.
And, without having that, like, I kind of need that.
You need to figure.
I'm
What
guessing,
about capital stable? This is a capital project.
Hadel doesn't want to touch that until free cash is certified.
if we take that, what we did in the ad hoc committee, what you want in a new senior center, here's what we need, this many rooms, this. If you put that out to any architect, they're gonna come back with something because they're bidding on an opportunity to get this job. They don't need any money to do that part of it. The money comes next once you've hired the architect, I believe. So if we put out an RFP to pick 3 architects, I don't know, pick any 3. Here's what we need in a building on paper. They're gonna come back and they're gonna try to come up with some pretty design, make it look like this, we can do this. And they're willing to do all that on their dime because they're hoping they're gonna get the job. They don't get the
Well,
job.
I'm happy to do that, Cindy.
So where we left it last, when EDM did the building feasibility study of 19 Union, and then they continued on advising us as part of that project. And they said, if you're going to contract with us for your next phases of this project, you should really get it down to one site before you call us in,
Well, we kind of have that.
Only-
I'm not gonna we can't call in any architect.
Well, I mean, before you put out the RFP, at least 2 sites, probably 1, because they said otherwise you're gonna waste time and money. I'm paraphrasing them.
Well, okay,
Mike Owens.
I think we need
Mike
Mike Owens
Yeah.
because this is, the thing is, I'd like to see what he has to say about asking them to give us an idea. We're given the ad hoc report. Give us your thoughts. But I want to make sure that if we hire an architect, they have experience with senior centers. I don't care if they've built, Caleb Bennett built a lot of schools. Is that enough?
Translate.
Does that translate to senior centers? Well, senior centers have their own specific needs, right?
I have a question. So we're talking about an architect right now, but I imagine that there's developers that have their own architects that do design, build project through completion. We're talking about opening this up to those types of people, not just searching for a singular architect to design this, right? Or are we looking for a singular architect who's unaffiliated with a developer? I'm just wondering what you know, if anybody has experience with those, the difference between those two things, because I would see there probably would be a difference.
Well, I don't know why we need a developer. I don't understand that.
Well, because they have all their folks, like a Kevin Perry or Five Star.
Right.
He's doing the project on Pleasant Street right now. He's probably got all the connections to bring that to the table for you. Different than a Kalo.
Is that like a general contractor?
Well, it's, instead of hiring people a la carte, you know, there's companies that specialize in coming in and doing a senior center or a school, you know, from the permitting through completion and delivery, and that's all they do. So they have an architect on staff, they have engineers on staff.
Well, if that's the case, we can put out an RFP for this.
So I mean, I don't know if that's been thought about yet, because I know we're
Yeah.
talking about an architect right now, but it
Yeah.
almost like I probably got 3 emails today from these big developers that specialize in doing these things, and they have everybody in-house. I don't know if it makes sense for us to build our own team or for.
That's like I'm getting emailed by Collier for an OPM,
Yes.
overall project manager. You know, so when the word is out there, then people start contacting you.
That was a question I had. Do we need a project manager?
Mm.
Yeah.
Like, well, if we could do it
We need an
in-house
OPM.
with our own engineer, we'd save a ton of money. And I gotta go back to selectman from South Hadley. When Omar won his election, we had a party, and he said, and I'm not afraid to say this, watch out for your OPM. He said that. And since that conversation, I'd like to find out, what do you mean? What's the problem? But the project manager is supposed to work for us, not for the architect.
For the
And,
watchdog.
and that, you know, that relationship is critical and it's costly. But if it's necessary, it's necessary. I don't know if it's necessary for cities. I know it's necessary when you're building a school because you're dealing with the state, right? But do we need one? Can't our engineer go over and look at the plans? Maybe there's not enough staffing to accommodate that. But boy, when he said that, and when I thought about the money we would save, but anyway, I just throwing that out there.
But to Cindy's point, Dan, they're gonna come out of the woodwork. You're gonna get Kalo and Beanick, you're gonna get EDM, we had 5 or 6 with the school department that came and submitted proposals.
So let's review. We don't need the appropriation to get the RFP out there, I don't think. If we bring Mike Owens in at the next meeting and we come up with some criteria, like, have you built these sites before? Have you built a senior center? If you haven't designed a senior center, that would bother me. You know, even though these other companies, Perrier or any of them, have a lot of experience in building things, I want somebody that's done it before. That's just me. But anyway, we get the criteria and we put it out there. That should probably be our next discussion. We'll talk, half the meeting, we'll talk with Allison and just firm up Park Street or wherever whatever she has to say about it. And then the other half of the meeting, the RFP with Mike Owens. Does that sound okay?
Yes, the one other thing with Mike Owens, so the question about the leasing, build and lease. So we want to know how that works financially. If someone were to build the building and we'd lease it from them.
Well, we can put that down on the agenda. Leslie,
Who's Mike Owens?
he's our purchaser. He funds
Procurement officer.
he does a lot of, anytime we need to
Contracts.
buy anything or bond, contract anything, he's the one. I think that's the plan. I think we have to do that because
Is there another question?
I didn't see that.
Yeah, another question was more in terms of an architect that's in Springfield that's done senior centers. Did Ludlow Senior Center, his Diets and Company.
Well, they'll all bid.
Yeah.
And the bid, if it's low bidder with a lot of experience, okay. I don't care. I mean, EDM has been forward with us, but I don't know them from, and I love Curtis together with Beanick, but I don't know how many senior centers they've built. So, you know, they have a lot of experience with our town, so that I like that. And so, Cindy.
question about the timing of a request for an appropriation. Whether it's 100,000, 75,000, or 250,000, if we miss the time frame on the current free cash request period, what is the next one?
There's no time frame.
Yeah,
He gets free cash certified, which means we have a pot of money. And he's already got a lot of thoughts on where it's gonna go. But there's no time frame. You can suggest free cash anytime in the spring, if you get to the mayor before he spends it all.
The senior center tends to be low down on the list for any free cash requests up until the ad hoc building committee asked for the funding for that study with UMass that we did that informed that report, which was great. But
Well, I would also say, I know Hadel doesn't like to use it, but we have capital stabilization for a reason. I would like to. Capital stabilization is a savings account, so that everybody understands this. It's money that doesn't, you have to spend free cash by June 30th or it goes away. Stabilization accounts are savings accounts. We have a general stabilization, capital stabilization. Capital stabilization is for capital projects, new fire engine, new building, new parks. That might be it. But anyway, let's cross that bridge when we get to it. My thinking is we hire the architect and they're gonna say, well, part of the RFP, would part of the RFP be how much do you bid on getting the schematic done? Right, the initial proposal, they'd have to bid on that, wouldn't they? The proposal that we send out to the voters.
Tom, you might remember better than me, but
Once we hired the architect, that was part of the
Right.
bill. The meter
Like, there
was
was-
running and they.
Yeah, but you already had an architect hired,
And they
so.
came up with a design of
Right.
what it would
so
look
they have a
like.
couple, I remember we had,
And we changed it
we had
drastically
changed-
along the
yeah,
way. We
like-
changed it drastically from beginning to end.
right.
so Dan,
Yes.
before the next meeting in December, can one of us find out for sure that the next phase of this would actually be considered capital versus not? Because I remember the former mayor saying one or the other, and I can't remember which, but it was restrictive to the revenue
Those are
source.
city government, city rules, they're not state rules.
Yeah.
How you want to use capital stabilization, how you want to use free cash. It's up to the mayor.
Okay.
But I will look into it, and I think having Mike Owens here will be helpful too.
And the other thing that I might like to do is contact somebody, if we can find out from you, Cindy, who's on the building committee for, say, South Hadley. I'd like to talk to that chair and find out, how did you do this? Because didn't they have to go out to the town meeting and the voters? South Hadley's not a city, so they had town meeting.
Go on,
Go ahead,
go on.
Don.
No, I thought they had a very different structure, but you would know more about it than me.
Well,
Right.
somebody had to
Did have
go
a
out to the voters.
Hadley.
Hadley did, so let's talk to Hadley. Who's that woman? She was great. Leslie, who's that?
Well, the Hadley director is gone, so
Mm-hmm.
we'd be talking to the former head of the Friends,
Isn't
or
she
the
the
current
woman
head of
that
the
toured us
Friends.
around, Leslie?
Yeah, she's a select board.
But she would know
Right.
perhaps how the architect, that might have been EDM, was hired and everything. I mean, this is not rocket science. It was done
And then to
before.
take it to town meeting.
Right. Hadley just might not be the best model because they had grave conflicts over that site, you know. So, you know, it was a torturous project to get that senior
My
center
point-
approved and built.
Yeah, the site isn't the issue. It's how the architect was hired. Did they have to,
Is Ludlow a city or town? Ludlow?
Ludlow's is town.
Town,
What about Westfield?
city. But Ludlow is the one we had speaking to us before, right?
She's offered to consult as needed, but also we could talk to Paula from Wilbraham. That was a big
Do you
process
mind
they went
making a
through.
couple phone calls and finding out how the architect was hired for the initial study if it went to voters, because that's a crucial thing. If they just bonded it through town meeting, that doesn't work for us. We don't do that. We have to get it over.
Okay. Yep.
I'd love to find that out because they did it.
Right, but I doubt they went to the voters twice.
No, but I'm talking about they hired an architect so they could do the schematic, whatever picture that they, what do you call that? The initial design, which might change, but it's
Right.
something that the voters could look at and say, oh, this is beautiful.
Right.
Right? Architects do that.
If they want to get the job, they do.
All right, Mike Owens and Allison, next meeting. I have nothing else. Our next meeting is December 29th. How's that sound for everybody? It's a Monday.
I'll be remote. Yep, but I can be on remote.
Anybody have a problem with the 29th of December?
It's the fourth Monday of the month, so it's the 22nd.
You said 29th on here.
Yeah, I have the
Tonight?
22nd.
Yes, you did.
22nd works.
22nd's better.
Let's do the
I actually
22nd.
have it on the 22nd. Yeah, you must just typo.
I made a mistake.
Just a typo.
We did,
Oh,
because
Cindy, that's gotta be a first, right, Don?
we did talk about it
think
being
so.
Christmas week.
First
It wasn't gonna
mistake
be an
Cindy's
issue.
ever
Yeah.
made.
Don't ask Dawn that question.
Oh, I agree. I think so.
She knows about lots of mistakes.
I can be live.
All right, 22nd.
It's the 22nd.
22nd is the next meeting. A motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.